My ancestors said that our dimension, AMANI, is composed of the three primary colors, blue, yellow, red, plus black and white. It means that AMANI is influenced by all three dimensions, plus heaven, she pointed at the right arm of the star she'd drawn, and hell, she indicated the left arm. Heaven and hell aren't dimensions, though. We can't actually travel there, but both still influence AMANI. You know how sometimes you feel angry at nothing in particular, or happy or sad for no reason? It simply means that you're being influenced by one of your selves who's experiencing that strong emotion. Something like that.
So that's a part of your book, AMANI, You Remember. What does it talk about?
Mostly dimensions and friendship, mostly because the two characters I just described, it's Samira and Amia, they will go through the dimensions and through other countries to save their friend Xander. And it's, I don't know, it's the beauty of friendship. You'll do anything to save your friends.
How did you come up with the idea and then decide to write a book? How did this come about?
Yeah, before I went to university in English, I started reading in English to just, start understanding the language. And, I was going to do a degree in English literature, so I had to read somehow. So I fell in love with the language and with literacy in general. And one day during the summer, I decided to start writing. I don't know, I had nothing better to do, so I started.
And how old were you at that point?
I was 21, yeah. And then the idea was very simple. It was a girl in a coma and something had happened. I knew who had done it, but then the idea grew and an entire new world built around it. It was inspiring, and I started writing and I couldn't stop.
So this is a bit of a fantasy novel.
Yes, it is. Yeah, well, there's no magic or, it's not Harry Potter, but, it could happen. I don't know.
So you're 19 years old, you decide to go to an English university at Bishop's. Tell me a bit about your decision to end up becoming a writer in English and going to English university. And how did that happen? I'm curious.
Well, I went 1 month in Ontario to learn English. But I didn't know back then that I really liked the language. I went to high school in Cégep and, we learned English, but I wasn't that good at English and I didn't, it wasn't something special to me. But when I started reading my first book before going to university, it was Vampire Academy. Then I fell in love and I kept reading in English and I started thinking in English and dreaming in English, and it was just crazy. I was supposed to go to Laval in Quebec, but then my friend said, "Hey, I'm going to Bishop's. Would you like to, come with me and we'll just look at the programs and stuff?" And we went there and I fell in love. It's very English, small. The professors are very accessible. You can talk to them anywhere you want. You can have a drink with them. It's pretty fun. So yeah, I just fell in love with the place, and then after I wrote my book, I thought, it's very badly written. I had never written a book before, and I just started reading 2 years before. So I decided to apply to the University of Oxford, and then, it was the end of my world in French. I fell in love with the language, with the accent, with the place. And yeah.
Tell me about your experience there. What did you do at Oxford? What was the course? What happened there?
It was a creative writing program. It was 3 weeks, and we studied with 2 authors. I studied with Lorna Ferguson and Julie Hearn. They were amazing. They read our first paragraphs of our books, and I met amazing people with whom I keep contact even today, even if they live in Philippines and the US. And I met great people, and I knew back then that it was my place. I felt like I was at home reading and writing and talking about writing. It was just, the whole thing was kind of my bubble, and it was a great experience, and the place is just amazing.
You mentioned that the two authors there that were with you, they'd read your book. Were you able to get some feedback on it? Did they help you a bit with maybe some of the structure? Any tips? What was that like?
Yeah, Julie Hearn read the first two chapters of my book, the first version, and she said, well, it's a bit confusing. You should, it's Amia, she's in a coma and she's having flashbacks and she's learning things about her past and her future. It's kind of complicated to write, and she said it was very confusing to read. So I had to change a lot of it. But when I wrote the book again, when I was back home here, I changed almost the whole beginning. I think it's still a bit confusing, but Amia is confused when she learns all of this, so I feel like the reader can follow her in her steps into understanding the world she lives in.
So you came back from Oxford from this creative writing class. That was last summer, and over the last year, you were in Quebec. You rewrote the book, and now you've managed to publish it. What was that turning point, that tipping point, that just said, "Okay, I have to do this. This is what I want to do"?
It's just something I can't stop doing, I have these characters in my head. It's so weird, but they talk to me and they're like, you have to write this story. And if I don't, well, they're going to stalk me until I do. And I would love to be able to do this full time, but for now, well, I have to pay the bills. But yeah, it's passion. I knew from the beginning when I started writing that it was something I would want to do for the rest of my life.
For anybody out there who's maybe wanting to get into the writing business, who's never been published, you've been down this road. How were you able to put this book together? How were you able to get published and to have it being sold on the internet? How did you manage to do that?
I first looked into on the internet to see, what are my options and what can I do to have it published. I first started acquiring agents because it's the traditional way, and I wanted, something big to happen. But then I was turned down pretty often. So I looked into self-publishing, and I kind of like the creativity you get from, creating your own cover and formatting your book. And, when you receive your book for the first time in your hands, it's like your baby. It's like I've created that on my own. It's pretty great. I've had someone to edit it because I speak French, so sometimes I don't have the right expressions or idioms, but mostly it was a great process. I would say to someone who wants to publish their book, you need to be very passionate about it because it's a slow process, and even when it's published, you don't get the fame and you don't get everybody shouting at you, I want the next one. Well, it's a very slow process, and if I were not that passionate about it, I would have stopped and I would not be writing right now.